So hi everybody, it is Erin. We are going to create some beautiful bookmarks with some handmade paper. And what I mean by handmade is I took digital files and created a background using these two files. So I have a flower and I have a leaf, and they are both from Quality Crafts. And what I did is they came to me as a JPEG, and I turned them into PNG files that I could place and arrange however I wish. So you didn't have like big boxes on your paper, and that way they could overlay. So I'm going to quickly kind of take you through and verbally tell you and show you some pictures about how I created this from a JPEG file. Now I use Photoshop Elements, and it's the same Elements program I've had probably for about 8 years, and it still functions wonderfully for everything that I need it to do. So what I did first is I opened up the digital file in Photoshop. Step one, open up your file, and just open up the file as a JPEG in your Photoshop. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to create a copy of the background. And it says duplicate layer. Just click duplicate layer and you'll end up with 2 background layers, just like you see right there. The next thing you do is you're going to collect your magic wand, which looks like a wand with a star on the top, and you're going to click all the white space surrounding the flower. Then just hit delete. Simple as that on your keyboard. Hit delete, and you're going to get what's called on one of your layers, the background layers, you're going to see a checkered background on one of your duplicate layers. And from there, you're then going to go over to the original layer that does not have that checkered background and delete it. So now you're left with one layer. Save that as a PNG file. So just save as and then rename it. That way you're not destroying the first file. So you're creating a second file for this now. I did the same thing for the leaves as I did for the flower. Close all that out. Now you're going to open up a brand new document, and you're going to place. So right up here, you're going to click place. And you're going to place your flower and size it to whatever size you like. I started off by placing this first flower right here. I then wanted some leaves in the background, so I opened my file because I did the same thing for the leaves. I went through and did the marching ants and deleted the background to create a PNG file, so it was all white in the back and not a big square. And I went ahead and placed my leaves, but my leaves placed on top of the flower, and I didn't want to do that. So I right-clicked and selected send to back. And all that did is it sent the leaves straight to the back. And then from there, I just went through and I placed the next flower and the next set of leaves, the next flower, layered them up. Some are behind, some are in front, and I just played with where the placement was. And I just kind of went down the page until I felt like I had a full image of where I wanted to go. And then I saved it. And this now became a background paper that I can then save. And all I did is I then opened it up in Word, placed the image into Word, sized it up so it would fit on a sheet of scrapbook paper. And this is just a heavy duty cardstock, and I printed it out. Simple as that. You can do this with any file image. I love the look of the flowers though, how they can overlap on each other. I think it really does have kind of a cool effect. All right, the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn this into bookmarks, but I want to watercolor this first. But I don't just get out any watercolors. I pull out my Brutus Monroe reinkers, and I'm going to do a couple of different colors for my leaves that are going to be tucked in behind here. So as I can see, I have some various leaves, and I did pick out 2 different colors for that. I also picked out 2 different colors of blue. We have cornflower and sea. And then I also picked out the aubergine, which is kind of like a purple, because I thought those would be pretty colors for my flowers. And then I also picked out phone book to kind of work with the centers. So all these little stamens that are kind of in here. And then we're just going to play a little bit. So the first step that I'm going to do is these reinkers. First, you got to shake them. I love how they interact with alcohol. So I'm going to take quite a few drops of each. And then I'm going to take, and this is just 70% isopropyl alcohol, and I'm going to pour it into the little well with it. So since I already have this kind of open, I'm going to go ahead and fill up my wells with alcohol. You could do it with water, but I just love the look of the alcohol better. I'm also going to put a bunch in the center, and that's kind of to clean my brush. I am also going to use a water brush, but instead of water being in here, we're going to, again, put alcohol in here to help me transfer the stuff over. Now I'm going to take, again, you want to shake them all. I'm just going to go ahead and do them right now. I do also have I'm going to make sure I cap everything just in case I knock things over. I'm such a klutz sometimes. So just to kind of get everything going, I am going to go ahead and kind of dilute all the colors and then just come in here, and that's my kind of cleaner. I have a towel here to also kind of clean my brush off between each run. So I am going to start kind of up in this corner, lightly pull it in. A little is going to go a long way, and I'm just going to come in and watercolor it. It does not need to be perfect, and I'm not looking for perfection. Come in with another color. I don't want to oversaturate this because that's what's going to happen with these papers, is they can get super saturated. And I'm just going to blend and kind of color in. I'm going to make all my petals, I believe, kind of this bluish color. So come in here. And I am perfectly fine with the fact that some of the petals are going to be a little bit of a different tone or shade or color. It's not going to be exactly the same. I love that feeling. Just coming in, having some fun, adding some color. Okay, so the flowers are done, and they're all just kind of, actually I want to touch this guy up just a tiny bit. And you can always pull on your, and I just did a little too much, you can add some of the alcohol by pushing on your wand, and it helps spread it around. I did not use a watercolor paper because I didn't want it bleeding too much on me, because I wanted to kind of stay within the frame of the colors. All right, next thing I'm going to do is going to do the purple, which is very simple because it just is going in the center here. All right, the next one I'm going to do is going to be the yellow color, which are all the stamens. Now, some of the colors that I tried to go through and color in, they definitely got a little bit colored in a bit, I should say. So I'm just going to do my best, start at the tips, and just kind of come down. They're not going to look perfect, but it's going to give the illusion that there is definitely a color that's a yellow on each of these. All right, so now the flowers are done. Now it's time to do the leaves. So I did pick two different colors of inks to do the leaves, and I am just going to alternate. One leaf I'll do the lighter color, and then another leaf I'll do a darker color just to add a little bit of contrast, and just continue on painting it all up. So I pretty much took the liberty, even though there may not have been a leaf in there, I'm kind of under the assumption that there would be a leaf kind of further down. And I think this is going to be part of one of these stamens. So you kind of have to do your best guess of what you think that object might be. What I'm going to do now is I'm just kind of going in very lightly in some areas that look like they're just kind of have a little bit of white left. I just may have missed. Just fixing some of the little edges here. I don't want to do too much because I don't want to take away some of the coloration that I've already created. So I'm going to let this fully dry. It is not super wet, but it definitely has, and that actually looks kind of pretty on the back side. But I want to give it some time to dry before I start cutting into it. And it's pretty well there. I mean, if you want to take your towel, but I mean, I'm not getting much of anything on my hand. So a little bit more time to dry while I kind of clean up. All right, so my paper is dried, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and cut these up into bookmarks. And I decided I wanted to have my bookmarks 2 by 6, and I'm going to have rounded corners. So the first step is I'm just going to go ahead and trim off the edges here. So I'm actually going to trim this side to be 6 inches, and I just realized that I completely forgot to color that right there. I don't know if you can see that. This little section right here got completely missed, so away it goes. So I ended up doing quite a bit of extra coloring, and that's fine. You know, I didn't know exactly what I wanted. So now I'm going to trim these down to be in 2-inch sections, just by 2 by 6. And then do another one that is 2 by 6. There we go. Look how pretty those look. These are so gorgeous. And then another one is 2 by 6. And I might get one last one. It's not quite 2, but it's pretty darn close. So this is one of the first punches I ever got, and it is a corner rounder, and I used it for scrapbooking, but I still think it's kind of one of the coolest ones out there. You can use it for pictures. You can use it just to kind of make your even small little pieces of art, your ATCs, bookmarks, just that much more fun by having a rounded corner. So I'm going to continue doing these for these ones. All right, so these are all done, and I think the back side's almost as pretty as the front. I mean, it really does kind of have this cool effect on the back. So I am perfectly fine with the fact that this bookmark is going to be kind of two-sided. Now, because this is made with just paper, we're going to strengthen it a little bit by laminating it. So this is my creative station, and what section I have in here right now is just a permanent adhesive. I'm going to replace that with my double-sided laminate. And this requires no heat, super simple to use. I'm just going to grab my little guy right here because we're going to put them in one at a time. When you first put it in, you want to make sure, and I didn't do that, there is this little flap right here. So when I place this in here, I want to make sure the flap actually comes through. There we go. And it comes out the back side right here. That's what it's going to run through. All you do is push on this little green piece right here, and that's what lifts it up and down. But it will not function and run in laminate unless you have it locked into place, so the lid does not pop off. I'm going to take 2 of my bookmarks, place them in, and I want to make sure that they are not next to each other. I don't want to line them up like this. I'm going to give them a little bit of space because we're going to recut these and give them a little bit of an edge of the laminate going around. Now, when you first run it, you want to make sure that it actually catches. So just do a little pull real fast. Make sure that it's sitting clean. So then you just take your plastic, make sure that you cut it. Ooh, got a little close on that one, but that's okay. And then really make sure that you smash down any air bubbles out and so forth. So I'm going to take just a pair of scissors, and I don't want to cut too close to the edge, but I do want to cut so I have a little bit of a gap on the plastic. Follow the corner. If you wanted to get your corner rounder out, you could, but I'm just eyeballing this at this point. And now you've got a permanent little bookmark. We're going to add a tassel and we're going to add a hole in the middle, but I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting these guys up. So I've got my big bite out, and I love this thing because it really does do a good job of giving nice clean holes. I actually have 2 different holes that I can pick from, and it's all based on the dial that you have here. So there's a dial here that goes a smaller hole, and there's one here that makes you have just a little bit of a bigger hole. And it's not as big as a hole punch, which I find punching through something that has plastic, it tends to be a little bit hard, especially because it's laminated, and the hole punch is just gonna not be clear. This has got a little bit of a tooth to it, so it goes right through no problem. So I'm just gonna place my, this is 2 inches, and I'm gonna go ahead, and it doesn't matter which one, top to bottom, right in the middle here, and go ahead and put my mark right there. And it's on plastic, but it's enough that I can kind of see that it is there, and that's all that I need. A little marking there that I can kind of look at. And basically all I'm gonna do is come in, find my little mark, and punch. And look how clean and easy that is. Beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the rest of these. So as you can tell, I've already started making little fun tassels. I found this beautiful, I've had this forever and I've never actually used the purple, but I thought it was perfect for this. I just love the tones and how it lays up next to the purples that are inside the flowers. And since it's mostly blues and greens, I thought it would make it really pop with that purple. So the first stage I'm going to do is go ahead and unwind this. And to make a tassel, number one, you need kind of a small fiber thread. This trim is perfectly fine. This is more of like a jute, and something to wrap it around. And I just want little tassels. I don't want large ones. So I'm going to wrap it around. Probably first I'm going to put one end right at the edge, and 10 to 15 times, something like that, until I feel like, okay, that's about a good amount, because it's going to get doubled up when you fold it over. I'm then going to come here and I'm going to cut. Actually, I'm going to go a couple more times. Just a little bit more. And I'm going to cut this on the other end right here and line it up kind of where I feel like the tassel end is going to be. I then need another strand. I like making this one a little bit longer, and then I'm going to need a second strand. So you're going to need 2 extra strands. Find my end. I should have done all that before I started winding my tassel around. There we go. The second strand does not need to be very long. At this point, you're going to take your trim here, pull it off, cinch it in the middle, and this is where the long strand is. Do your best to try and find the center. And I like winding around. Oops, try not to get that. I like to wind it around one time, a couple of times both ways. Give it a little bit of a knot there. And then just tie yourself a square knot. Square knots right over left, left over right. I put it on the table to kind of give myself a little bit of a base for it to sit on so it doesn't unwind and pull apart on me. And then tie it nice and tight. Really get in there. That's the first knot. Then come in and do the second knot. And that should be plenty. Now, at this point is where you take these 2 strands, and this is going to give you the length for your tassel right here. So wherever you feel like you want your tassel, I'm going to make this one just a tiny bit longer for fun. I'm going to go ahead and take this and do a knot. I wrap it around my fingers, pull through, and tighten. And above that knot, I trim it off. So I actually did way more than I needed to, but that was fine. Now what you're going to do is you take your scissors and you come in here, try not to pick up extras, and you trim up all the loops as evenly as possible. And that's why you want to try and get right in the center, and then when you're doing your tassel, fold it in half, take that other piece that you got, and this is where you're going to start wrapping it around this way. Again, you want to make it tight, so it's holding it together and giving it its tassel look. Come in, and you want to do it kind of towards the top. You don't want to make sure that it's too low, because then it looks like it's kind of funny. Really pinch tight, tie it up, and then tie these 2 strands together. And this takes a little finesse, because you've got 2 strands, but you're trying to hold the tassel at the same time. As soon as you get your first tie in there, you're good. Same square knot as before. Again, you're trying to do it one-handed, and it makes it a little more complicated. Sometimes you have to get your teeth in there. I think I got it. There we go. Pull that nice and tight. And I always do a couple of knots here. So that was the first knot. This is the second one, just to make sure. And just to give it a third one, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Probably did not need to do that, but I do it anyway. I don't always trust my square knots, because sometimes I don't think about the fact I'm going right over left and I make a granny knot. And those can come undone. So now you take your tassel, pull it through. Oh, I gotta go this way. Go from the front side, because I want the knot to be on the back. Open up the back side, pull my tassel through. And if you wedge this back here enough, your knot should just kind of hide and sit back behind as it pulls up. And so I've got, long tassels, short tassels. If you want your tassel length to be longer, I could have rolled it this way versus this way, and it would have given me a longer tassel length, but I wanted little short fun ones. So there it is. DIY bookmarks. They're laminated to make them extra strong. We created the background paper on this using a digital file that we then went into Photoshop, watercolored the whole thing using reinkers, making some beautiful colorations, and even the back is pretty. Like I said, it's pretty gorgeous. And then laminated it to give it extra strength, and then added a fun little tassel on the top. So look how easy. You could even get kids involved in this particular craft because they can help you color it. If you don't want to do your homemade paper, you could easily do like coloring books that you've colored up, cut them up, and turn them into bookmarks. So lots of fun ways. Think of all those adult coloring books. Think of all the pages that you've done. Now you can turn them into something fun. And these can be given to friends. These can be given to other kids. They could be party favors. They could be just for you. I mean, there's so many fun ways. And and the sheet that I printed out initially was an 8x8 sheet. And I easily got 4 that are 2 by 6 inches. So very user friendly. Thanks so much for stopping by. Supplies are listed below, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.